Cold calling openers, SEO lead warm-ups. Why cold calling isn't cold when SEO did the warming. Cold calling isn't dead. Generic calling is. When a prospect finds you through organic search, reads a guide, or visits your pricing page, they're not a random name on a list. They've already raised their hand in a quiet way. The job of the opener is to acknowledge that context, earn permission to continue, and sound like a helpful continuation of their research. This matters because SEO is one of the biggest feeders for modern outbound motions. Organic search is credited with driving roughly 53% of website traffic and around 40% of revenue on average, which means SEO leads aren't a side channel, they're often the main channel. If your team treats those leads like a scraped list, you're voluntarily turning high-intent interest into low-intent friction. In this guide, we'll show how to turn inbound behavior into practical, low-friction, cold-calling openers your SDR agency or in-house team can use immediately. We'll cover what signals to reference, how to operationalize speed to lead, and how to build a repeatable system that improves meeting rates without forcing awkward scripts. If you're evaluating cold calling services or running an outsourced sales team, this is the fastest way to make calls feel less like interruptions and more like relevance. The intent gap: why SEO leads close like warm leads. SEO-sourced leads behave differently because the buyer intent is fundamentally different. Reported benchmarks show SEO-generated leads closing around 14.6%, while outbound-sourced leads, classic cold calling, direct mail, and similar, close closer to 1.7%, roughly an 8x swing driven largely by intent. Inbound is also often cheaper to acquire, with inbound leads reported as about 39 to 62% less expensive than outbound on average. So every missed conversation is expensive in two directions. The buyer journey reinforces why the opener has to change. Research indicates about 69% of the B2B purchase process happens before a buyer engages a seller, and 81% have already selected a preferred vendor before talking to sales. Add in the reality that 61% of buyers prefer a rep-free experience and 73% actively avoid suppliers who send irrelevant outreach, and your first 15 seconds becomes a relevance test, not a pitch opportunity. Calling benchmarks land the same way in practice. Average cold call to meeting rates are often cited around 2.5%, while marketing qualified leads can rise to 4 to 6%, and warm intros/referrals can reach 15 to 25%. SEO-warmed calls should trend toward the warm side if your opener uses the context the prospect already gave you. If you ignore that context, you'll perform like a cold list, even when the lead was practically asking to be contacted. What an SEO-aware opener must accomplish in 20 seconds. Your goal on an SEO-warmed call isn't to pitch the company, it's to earn the next 30 to 60 seconds. The highest performing openers do 5 things quickly. Identify who you are, state why you're calling them specifically, reference a real behavior signal, page view, download, keyword intent, ask permission to continue, and land on a question that matches what they were researching. That sequence reduces defensiveness because it feels situational, not scripted. Relevance should come from the signals SEO already provides. If the contact visited a pricing or comparison page, your opener should sound like, "I saw you were checking out our pricing page earlier today. Did you find what you needed, or were you comparing a few options?" If they came in through a problem-focused blog, your opener should sound like, "You were reading our guide on reducing no-shows. Was that tied to a current pipeline issue or more future planning?" The exact words matter less than the premise. You're joining a conversation they already started. This is where many cold calling companies miss the mark. They use one script for everything. A cold calling agency can't treat a pricing page visitor the same way it treats a brand new prospect from list building services, because the buyer's context is different and the tolerance for generic outreach is lower. When we build calling motions at SalesHive, we separate openers by lead source, SEO, content downloads, true cold, because opener fit is one of the simplest multipliers available in B2B cold calling services. How to operationalize SEO signals inside your SDR workflow. To make SEO-warmed calling repeatable, reps need the right context at the moment of the dial. That means your CRM and dialer view should surface a small set of fields, such as last page viewed, the content asset, if any, session recency, and a simple intent tier, low, medium, high. If reps have to click through 4 systems to find context, they won't use it, and your openers will revert to generic intros. Speed matters as much as personalization. If someone hits a high-intent page, like pricing, services, demo, or comparisons, you want an SLA measured in hours, not days, because the buyer is actively evaluating while the memory is fresh. A practical model is to route pricing, service page visitors for near real-time follow-up, then follow with content download and blog traffic on a slower clock. The key is that the opener still references the trigger so the call connects to their intent. Layer in lightweight research so you don't sound like you only read a tracking alert. A benchmarked 3x3 research routine, 3 relevant facts in 3 minutes, has been associated with roughly an 82% improvement in conversion, and it's especially powerful when combined with SEO behavior. For a sales development agency or outbound sales agency, this is a coaching-friendly standard. 1 person insight, 1 company insight, 1 intent insight, then call. Your opener shouldn't prove you can talk. It should prove you paid attention. Opener frameworks that match common SEO behaviors. A content download opener works when a prospect filled out a form for a guide, webinar, checklist, or template. In practice, it sounds like, "You downloaded our guide on X yesterday. Does that ring a bell?" Followed by a low-pressure question that clarifies intent. "Were you focused more on fixing Y or evaluating options for Z?" The rep earns permission by being specific and time-bound, not by racing into a feature pitch. A high-intent page visit opener works when the buyer visited pricing, services, comparison, or implementation pages. The tone should be helpful and diagnostic, like, "You were checking out our pricing page earlier. What were you hoping to confirm?" Or, "I noticed you spent time on our B2B cold calling services page. Are you looking to augment an in-house team or explore sales outsourcing?" That framing aligns to the buyer's task, evaluate, not your task, sell. A problem-focused blog opener works when the lead entered through a how-to article, glossary, or alternatives page. Here, the win is continuity. "You were reading our piece on reducing no-shows. Did it give you anything new or mostly confirm what you're seeing?" Then you offer a next layer rather than a product pitch. "If I ask 2 questions, I can tell you which lever usually moves the needle fastest in your situation." This approach also pairs well with a short pre-call email from a cold email agency motion, so the call feels like the second touch, not the first interruption. Common mistakes that kill SEO-warmed calls and what to do instead. The most costly mistake is using the same opener for SEO leads and pure cold lists. When someone just visited a services or pricing page, a generic "Do you have a minute?" intro makes you sound unaware, and awareness is the entire advantage of SEO-warmed calling. The fix is simple. Segment scripts by source and intent tier and require the first sentence to explain why I'm calling you specifically using the exact page, asset, or topic. The second common failure is ignoring website behavior before dialing, which forces reps into generic discovery the buyer already did on their own. If 73% of buyers avoid irrelevant outreach, generic discovery is a fast track to resistance, even when the lead is real. The operational fix is to pipe last page and asset data into the dialer CRM call screen and coach reps to reference one signal in the opener and one signal in the first question. Two more mistakes show up constantly in telesales teams: overpitching in the first 30 seconds and calling days or weeks after the trigger. With 61% preferring a rep-free experience, long product intros feel like a takeover, not help. So earn 30 to 60 seconds first, then ask a single focused question tied to their intent. And if your team calls too late, the buyer has likely already progressed toward a preferred vendor, often before speaking with sales, so your warm lead becomes a stale one. SLAs and routing rules solve that more reliably than motivational coaching. How to measure, test, and improve opener performance. If you want openers to improve, you need a scorecard that's closer to science than opinion. Track meetings booked per 100 connects by lead type: SEO content, SEO high-intent pages, MQLs, true cold, because averages hide what's actually working. Since benchmarks show cold call to meeting can sit around 2.5% overall, while warm motions reach 15 to 25%, your goal is to pull SEO-warmed calls toward the warm range and quantify the gap. Run structured A/B tests on openers by persona and trigger, not random script refreshes. For example, keep everything constant but swap the first two sentences. One version anchored to the page, pricing, services, another anchored to the problem, pipeline, no-shows, lead routing. After a week or two, compare connect to meeting rate and average call duration to see which opener earns permission faster. Finally, make your opener strategy multi-channel so the phone call doesn't carry all the weight. A short, relevant email or LinkedIn touch that references the same asset can raise familiarity and reduce resistance when the phone rings. At SalesHive, we often pair calling with intent-aware messaging because the combination creates continuity across the buyer's research journey, which is exactly what modern prospects expect from a strong B2B sales agency or sales rep agency. Next steps. Build an SEO-warmed calling motion that scales. Start by treating SEO as a first-class outbound input, not marketing's thing. Put a monthly intent review on the calendar where sales and marketing look at which SEO pages, keywords, and assets drive the most qualified activity. Then, update opener language to mirror what prospects are actually reading. This alignment prevents the trust break that happens when the website promises one experience and the call sounds like another. Then, lock in the operational basics: routing by intent, speed to lead SLAs, and a minimum standard for research. The fastest win is ensuring every rep can see last page and asset signals at a glance, and every opener includes one behavior reference plus a permission-based question. When you do that consistently, you stop cold calling and start running a predictable system that respects the buyer's context. If you're deciding whether to build internally or outsource, evaluate the same criteria you would for any sales outsourcing decision: data plumbing, coaching bandwidth, QA, and the ability to test and iterate quickly. Whether you hire SDRs in-house or partner with an SDR agency or cold calling agency, the competitive advantage comes from treating SEO-warmed leads like the warm opportunities they are, and making your opener prove it in the first sentence. Done well, your team gets more meetings with fewer dials, and your organic traffic turns into measurable pipeline.